Um, so Virgo, you've been in a holding pattern, wanting something, working towards something, hoping for something, and watching it not arrive, not materialize, not manifest despite your effort, despite your faith, despite your conviction that it should have happened by now. And that waiting, it's been brutal, hasn't it? That specific torture of seeing others get what you want while you're still stuck in the not yet. That exhaustion of maintaining hope when evidence keeps suggesting maybe it's not coming at all. You've questioned yourself, questioned your worth, questioned whether you're doing something wrong or missing something essential or being punished for something you can't identify, and maybe you've wrapped it in spiritual language to make it bearable. Divine timing, God's plan, the universe knows better than I do, but underneath the spiritual framing, you're just tired, tired of waiting, tired of not knowing when or if, tired of holding space for something that keeps not showing up. How long have you actually been waiting for this thing? Get specific about the timeline if you're ready to look at it honestly, because here's what I'm not going to tell you. I'm not going to tell you that God made you wait because there's some perfect person or opportunity or outcome being prepared that will make all the suffering worth it. That narrative, while comforting, removes your agency and turns you into passive recipient of divine plan you have no influence over. I'm not going to promise that the wait is almost over and everything you've been hoping for is about to arrive, because I don't know that. And anyone who promises specific outcomes is either lying or deluded. I'm not going to suggest that your waiting has made you more deserving or that suffering is currency you've been collecting that will now be exchanged for blessing. That's not how life works. That's not how growth works. That's not even how most religious or spiritual traditions actually conceive of divine relationship. So, what am I going to tell you? What you've been waiting for might not come. And if it does come, it might not look like you imagined. And the waiting itself, the time you've spent in limbo that wasn't divinely orchestrated to teach you lessons, that was just life being life. Complicated, uncertain. Refusing to conform to your timeline or preferences. Does that feel like a punch in the gut? Or does it feel like relief to stop pretending the waiting has cosmic purpose? Be honest about your reaction, because let me talk about what actually happens during waiting periods. Some people use the time. They grow, they develop, they build capacity, they work on themselves in ways that genuinely prepare them for what they're hoping to receive. They don't just wait passively. They actively become someone who's ready, someone who could handle what they're asking for, someone who's developed the skills or maturity or groundedness that would be required. And for those people, when opportunity finally arrives, if it arrives, they're positioned to receive it well, not because the waiting was punishment or test, but because they used the time productively. Other people just suffer through it. They stay stuck in resentment about the delay. They remain fixated on what's not happening. They spend the waiting time bitter or desperate or increasingly convinced that they're being unfairly denied something they deserve. And those people, even if what they're waiting for eventually shows up, they're not more ready than they were at the beginning. They just waited longer while staying exactly the same. Which category have you been in? Have you been using this time or just enduring it? Answer without judgment, just honest assessment. Because here's the thing about huge outcomes, about worth the wait moments, about finally getting what you've been hoping for. They don't automatically make the suffering meaningful. They don't retroactively justify the pain. They don't transform years of difficulty into necessary preparation just by virtue of finally arriving. Sometimes good things happen after long waits, and the waiting was still just suffering, still just time spent in difficulty that you'd rather not have experienced, still just painful regardless of eventual outcome. The ending doesn't redeem the journey. The destination doesn't sanctify the path. Getting what you want eventually doesn't mean you needed to suffer to deserve it. So if what you've been waiting for does show up, if the thing you've been hoping for finally materializes, don't let its arrival become evidence that the waiting was necessary or divinely planned or part of some cosmic design. Don't let the relief of finally receiving something erase the legitimate pain of having waited for it. You're allowed to be grateful for what arrives and still angry about how long it took. Both can be true simultaneously. Can you hold that complexity, or do you need the waiting to have been purposeful to make peace with it? Examine what you actually need to believe about this experience, because I want to address the spiritual bypassing that often happens around waiting. People who've been waiting a long time, especially for things that matter deeply, they're vulnerable to narratives that promise the wait was meaningful, that suggests suffering is currency, that frame delay as divine protection or preparation. And those narratives provide comfort. They make the unbearable more bearable. They give structure to something that otherwise just feels random and unfair, but they also create problematic patterns. They make you passive if you're waiting for divine timing, if you believe God is orchestrating everything, if you think the delay is happening for reasons beyond your understanding. You stop taking action. You stop creating opportunities. You stop being agent of your own life and become someone waiting for external forces to deliver. They create toxic positivity if you have to believe the waiting is purposeful, if you can't acknowledge legitimate anger or grief about the delay, if you're constantly reframing suffering as blessing, you can't actually process what you're experiencing. You can't be honest about how much it hurts. You can't integrate the reality of difficulty because you're too busy insisting it's all part of the plan. They set you up for devastation if what you're waiting for doesn't come. Because if you've built entire meaning structure around God made me wait because something amazing is coming, what happens when it doesn't come? When the wait just continues indefinitely? When you eventually have to accept that maybe this particular thing isn't going to happen for you, the spiritual framework collapses and you're left not just with disappointment about the specific outcome, but with crisis about whether anything you believed about divine purpose or cosmic justice was ever true. Have you been using spiritual language to avoid feeling what you're actually feeling? Get honest about whether your faith is supporting you or bypassing you. Because here's what might actually be true about your situation. You've been waiting for something, and during that waiting, you've either grown or you haven't. You've either developed capacity or you've stayed stagnant. You've either become more ready or you've just become more bitter. And whatever you've been waiting for, it might come or it might not. Or it might come in form so different from what you imagined that you almost don't recognize it as the thing you were asking for. None of that has anything to do with God making you wait. None of that is divine plan. None of that is cosmic orchestration. It's just how life unfolds with complexity, with variables you don't control, with outcomes that don't always match effort or deserve or duration of hoping. And your job, the only thing you actually control is how you navigate that reality. Do you keep growing even when outcomes don't arrive on your preferred timeline? Do you maintain integrity even when you're not being rewarded for it? Do you build capacity even when you're not sure you'll get opportunity to use it? Because that's what actually matters. Not whether the waiting ends with dramatic fulfillment, but whether you became someone stronger, wiser, more grounded through the experience of waiting. What have you actually learned or developed during this time? Make a real inventory, not a spiritual platitude. Because I also want to talk about what this is huge might actually mean. Maybe what's huge isn't some external thing finally arriving. Maybe what's huge is internal shift that makes external circumstances less determinative of your well-being. Maybe the transformation isn't getting what you wanted. Maybe it's no longer needing it desperately. Maybe it's discovering you can be okay, genuinely okay, even if this particular thing never manifests. That's huge. That's liberation. That's freedom from attachment that was making you suffer. Or maybe what's huge is recognizing that you've been waiting for wrong thing, that what you thought you wanted isn't actually aligned with who you're becoming, that the waiting has given you space to realize you need to redirect your energy towards something different entirely. That's huge too. That's clarity. That's course correction that saves you from pursuing something that wouldn't actually serve you. Or maybe, just maybe, what's huge is that something you've been working toward, positioning yourself for building capacity around, is finally approaching manifestation, not because God orchestrated the timing, but because you've been creating conditions, because effort compounds, because sustained action eventually produces results even when the timeline is longer than you wanted. Which version of huge feels most true for your situation? Don't reach for the most comforting answer. Reach for the most honest one. Because here's what I really need you to hear. The waiting you've endured, however long it's been, it wasn't punishment. It wasn't test. It wasn't divine orchestration designed to make you more deserving or prepared or grateful. It was just the space between wanting and receiving, the gap between effort and outcome, the time that passed while variables beyond your control did or didn't align, and what you did with that space, how you showed up during that gap, whether you grew or stagnated during that time. That's on you. That's your responsibility and your agency and your power. So stop waiting for God to reveal why the delay was necessary. Stop looking for cosmic purpose in your suffering. Stop trying to make the waiting meaningful by insisting it was all part of some divine plan. Just acknowledge it was hard. You wanted something and didn't get it on your timeline. You suffered in the not knowing and the not yet. And despite that difficulty, you either grew or you didn't. You either became more ready or you stayed the same. You either used the time or you just endured it. And whatever's coming next, whether it's what you've been waiting for or something completely different, you'll meet it from whoever you became during the waiting. That's all there is. No cosmic purpose No divine orchestration, just you making choices about how to navigate difficulty and then living with the person those choices created. So, who did you become while you were waiting? That's the only question that actually matters. Not why you had to wait, but who you are now because of how you navigated the waiting. Answer that. Then decide if you like that answer. If you do, keep being that person. If you don't, change it. That's your power. That's your agency. Use it. The waiting ends when you stop needing it to end. Then and only then are you actually ready